Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going. The great thing about this episode now and future episodes is we don't have to do any reads for Aura because they dropped me as a sponsor. So
tragic.
I know. Hey guys, it's me. It's Mike again. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of The New Nation. We're back at it. This is the 13th episode, Lucky 13 or Unlucky. Oh no, with
How
Mary
is 13
Morgan.
Unlucky? Hi guys, it's Mary Morgan.
Well, in hotels they don't have 13 floors because it's considered an unlucky number.
Okay, well, I'm really worried because you guys don't remember me because my episode never came out. And I was supposed to be on episode 1 of the New Nation podcast.
I know.
And then you said it looked like it was recorded on a potato and
Yes.
it sounded like we were underwater. Therefore, it was unlistenable, unwatchable.
Yes.
And it was not released. So it's the SpongeBob SquarePants lost episode of the New Nation podcast. And we had nothing to show for it, for all of that conversation. So now we have the transcript in front of us.
I know.
And we're going to repeat
Word
literally
for word.
everything we said, word for word,
I
so
know.
you guys all get the information and the juicy details and the drama.
But that show would have been like a year old now, almost, right? Because it was in maybe, July, August?
Yeah.
Or maybe even
there
June?
are updates.
Yeah.
For sure. There's new stuff to talk about.
But to be fair, if you do want to watch the first one, I can give you the password because it's on YouTube, but it's private.
Okay, well, I mean, I want to watch it now. I'm curious.
It's so hard to watch. It's so hard to listen to because it sounds like this. Like if you don't have headphones on, but this is what it sounds like. It sounds like the mic is 5 feet away, and it looks like it was recorded on a potato.
You said some people actually did watch it.
Yes.
Which I can't
guys
imagine
in the Discord
why.
group. Because they were like, we want to see Mary. They were simps. They were Mary simps. So they wanted to see you.
Not sure how I feel about that, but I appreciate the dedication. Excuse me while I pop my zinni.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, can you tell the listeners that you said because I got a decaf espresso in my latte that it's cringe?
It is cringe and gay. Whatever caffeine does to your body that is so harmful, whatever they do to take the caffeine out of coffee is probably worse.
Well, there's still caffeine in decaffeinated coffee. There's still like little bits. I don't want to say trace amounts.
What do they do to it to take the caffeine out of it? It's probably worse than whatever caffeine is.
You're probably right, but if I was on caffeine right now, I would feel as if there was like a lion that's just sitting behind you waiting to pounce on me. So it puts me on edge, which is what it's supposed to do.
Okay.
It's not natural. It doesn't.
Your body people
has
have different responses to it. I don't feel hyped up when I drink coffee.
What about when you put the Zyn?
Yeah, but less than when I first started zinning.
Okay.
Like when I first started, obviously you get like, what is it? It's not lightheadedness.
Right.
But
yeah, when you smoke a cigarette too fast.
I don't smoke cigarettes and I never will, but
that's what the feeling is. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But I'm not going to give up caffeine or nicotine anytime soon. I'm not sure. Okay, looking into the future, when I start having children, I don't think that you're supposed to use nicotine in any capacity while pregnant or breastfeeding. So that's probably the stopping point. But it's just a pause. You know, it's always going to be part of my life.
Yeah, people do it anyway. They say not to drink, but still, pregnant women, they can have
pregnant women zin?
I don't know. That's it's nicotine, right?
Yeah, but they tell you not to
not,
smoke
right.
and not to like use chewing tobacco.
We would have to look up studies on that.
If there are any,
I don't think
it's
there
such
are.
a new
it's so
thing.
new.
Well, Chuck Schumer was saying that nicotine, or he said like Zins is a pouch packed with problems. And
I think New York has enough problems that he should probably worry about other than Zyn.
I was like, say it, don't spray it.
You know,
the
illegals get to have, I think, is it up to $10,000 on a debit card in New York?
Wait,
when they get
seriously?
There? I
mean, I heard about that, but I didn't think it was $10,000, and they're supposed to use it on food only at bodegas.
It's something ridiculous.
But what else are they doing with it? Are they going to strip clubs?
I want to get some chopped cheeses. I would have a debit card purely for chopped cheese.
Like, I've heard of that, but I have no idea what that means.
Okay, just as a reminder to everybody who's listening to this episode, very little of it is probably going to do with Catholicism, but even though Mary is a Catholic, that's fine. That's not why I brought her on. Yeah, we can. But we're just going to talk about whatever pops into our head. So Mary does host a show called Pop Culture is a Crisis on Timcast, which you should watch. I was on it once. It was awesome. They just passed 500 episodes, didn't you guys?
Yeah.
And
actually,
then 100,000
we're
subscribers
getting
too?
closer to episode 600 than episode 500. It just keeps time flies.
It really
and we
does.
also did a 100K subscriber special.
Well, you guys do it every day, 5 days a week,
Every day,
right?
every weekday.
How did you manage that for yesterday?
Yesterday, we found someone to fill in for me who was Phil Labonte of All That Remains. And then we also have special guests every Friday.
Yeah.
At least as far as we can manage to. And yesterday was a YouTuber who goes by, I think, Camelot 331 or is it Camel 331? I don't know. I had never heard of him before Brett, my co-host, told me about him. And he told me that this guy takes his shirt off after they get $1,000 in super chats on his own live streams.
That's
so
what
I was
Elijah,
like, maybe I don't want to be a part of that specific episode, and it'll be fine without me. It'll be a boys' day. It'll be boys.
Cool.
That's what they do.
Yeah, Elijah made me take his shirt off when I was still doing the show with Gina. Made me take my shirt off.
Oh,
he was in Australia or whatever it was.
That almost meant something extremely different.
We're also recording outside. We were going to record inside this coffee shop, but I didn't realize that they played music in there. I thought it was a quieter one, and it is a Christian coffee shop.
Yeah. So
but not like the good ones.
Do the proceeds support the church or what's
Well, it's called The Well.
Yeah. So it's called wells. The Well, therefore it's Christian.
They build wells. No.
They build wells.
But it is a
like Mr. Beast.
Oh, does he?
He does. He's famous for
Isn't he like the most
that.
hated philanthropic person of our generation?
Most hated?
Yeah, because people don't like him.
Maybe Bill Gates. You know, because he fancies himself a philanthropist.
Yeah, but didn't the mainstream media rail against Mr. Beast for giving 1,000 people free eye surgery or something like that?
Yes, they did. He's slandered as a white savior, someone who thinks that he is in a position of authority because he can help brown people in third world countries. Or did you think it's based? I don't know. I really don't have an opinion on Mr. Beast, and I have no idea why people feel so strongly either way about him.
Yeah.
I think I'm too old for his content.
Same.
And a lot of parents don't know that their children are watching his content because I brought him up to my aunt and uncle who have young kids, and I was like, do you know who Mr. Beast is or what that is? And they were like, we've never heard of that. And then immediately my cousins were like, yeah, we love Mr. Beast. They have no idea.
Oh, okay. But it's not any
He's
nefarious
not
type of content, right?
I really
it's just
don't
game
think he's a bad
shows, kind
influence.
of, right?
We're
going to lock you all in a room for 3 months and the last person to come out.
Yes, it's psychological torture, but it's voluntary. It definitely, your kids could be watching way worse.
Right.
How old are your children, by the way?
One's 3.5, actually, in a week or so. And then the other one's 2 months.
So you're really before the point where you even have to worry about that type of stuff.
Yeah. But we're at the point now where she's not one of these types of people that has to have a screen in front of her all the time. There are kids her age that we see that's kind of concerning. But our thing right now is TV used to be a thing that would give us a little bit of free time. You know, we just plop her down in front of a show or in front of a movie a couple times a day. But now we do Friday movie night. Friday family movie night. And
last
night we watched Turbo. That was fun.
What is that?
It's about a fast snail, Ryan Reynolds.
Oh, wait, no, I remember that.
Yep.
Yeah. So what do you...
Yeah.
When they were watching TV, like, what did you let them watch?
She was watching... my daughter.
Just your daughter.
She was watching a lot of Peanuts. She was watching... What was she watching? She was watching a lot of Disney movies, so Cars, Cinderella, things like that. Yeah,
That's
she wasn't
good.
watching, Woke Blue's Clues or Cocomelon or anything like that. No, there's a certain age where they turn off of that.
Skibidi Toilet.
Because they get, toilet.
Thoughts on Skibidi Toilet?
I don't know what that is, but hearing the word toilet triggers me because we're still trying to get her to poop on the potty. And it is rough.
Yeah, that can be rough. Well... Skibidi Toilet is what I've heard Gen Alpha is obsessed with these days.
It's something. It's
Have you
Bluey,
seen it before?
It's Miss Rachel. No, I haven't. I don't know what it is.
Bluey seems like actually wholesome.
Yes,
Skibidi Toilet, I can't pretend to understand the appeal, but basically people do that. They make it in Gary's mod. It's some random Russian guy that makes it, I think. And the storyline is that there's a race of toilet people that the Skibidi toilets that have invaded the world, and then the camera guys are the ones who are fighting back against them, and it's this constant war between them trying to save the planet.
First person shooter kind of vibes as far as like the camera goes?
I don't remember it but there are a lot of explosions, but it's not like graphic violence. I think that what's scarier is that it's nonverbal, so it has global appeal.
Okay. That just makes it weird, though.
And there's something called Skibidi Toilet Syndrome now, where Gen Alpha children are pretending to be the Skibidi toilets, and they're getting into toilets or laundry baskets.
Wait, really?
And they're pretending to be the Skibidi toilets, and like there's this Russian song that they sing in it. That's all I know. That's all I have for you.
Now I have to look it up now.
Yeah, don't let
I'm
your
not going to
daughter
show it
watch
to her, but I'm going to look it up
for
just
sure.
for reference and for common knowledge. Anyway, a chopped cheese is just basically it's New York's version of a Philly cheesesteak. So you go to Bodega, and what they do is they take 2 meat patties, they mush them all up, mush them together, and then they serve it on either a roll or a hero with lettuce, tomato, and some sauce.
Okay.
No sauce, just the cheese. Yeah, I don't think there's any sauce. But a lot of people were confused for stealing what culture vultures and cultural appropriation, because like YouTube channels like Eater and Bon Appetit would be like, here's this New York sandwich that's taking over the world. It's a $9 sandwich, and people who are living in Brooklyn and Queens and going to bodegas like, this is a $4 sandwich. They're taking our culture. No one else should be able to have chopped cheese except for people in the neighborhood. So it's funny.
Seems like a cope, though.
I think it is
for
a cope.
all of the problems that come with living in New York. And I've only been to New York City twice in my life. The first time was for my 10th birthday, going to the American Girl flagship store, which was a moment I'll never forget.
Specifically for that. That's what you went to New York for.
I think that we were like picking up my older brother from a camp at the same time, but it was like a twofer that we were doing it. And that was really special. That's all I remember about it. And then the second time was to see my billboard in Times Square.
Oh, right, from the Timcast.
Technically a work trip.
How much did they pay for that?
Oh gosh, it must have been 6 figures.
Really? Dang, Tim making that good money.
Depending on like the amount of days or weeks really that he chose to keep it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's seriously not an effective way to advertise a YouTube show at all. Like people don't actually look at the billboards, but it's still something that I have bragging rights for the rest of my life. Yeah. So
I've had a couple billboards of photos that I've taken in Times Square. So that's kind of cool.
That is cool.
But my face isn't on it.
That is still something to brag about.
Yeah. There was a controversy. I can't remember what it was, but it was on Twitter, and it was someone involved with Destiny and about the downstairs before you go up into any of the studios.
Oh, boy.
Did you see this?
Are we going to get into this? I have seen this.
I just don't know, because I was like, maybe I'll ask Mary what happened here, but someone was like, Destiny didn't even approach me or whatever, and it's a green room, so everybody's supposed to be. I'm like, it's not a green room. That whole downstairs area is not a green room.
We call it a green room,
it's a lounge.
It's
a lounge. It's where people work sometimes, I assume, and it's where people just go to hang out and eat.
We call it a green room.
It's a common room.
It is definitely not a green room. It's an entire floor of the house,
right.
And where I work is a house. It's not an office building.
There are some like games. There's a pool table and stuff like that, but it's not.
There's a massage chair, weirdly, that I don't know. When people use it, I'm like.
Traditionally, and what I've known from touring for 10 years of my life, a green room is a small room, and it could be a big room, but it's where the artists or the crew are able to set their stuff, relax before the show, and just kind of hang out. And if production or crew needs to come grab you, they know which room is your green room.
Right.
At Timcast, that is not that. That is not a green room. They may call it the green room, but I don't even remember who got mad at Destiny.
No, I do remember because, I didn't personally witness this encounter.
Okay.
But I assume it must have been the last time that Destiny was at the castle. And that's what we call it, by the way, the castle. And Phil Labonte, who is my coworker, and he's also a failed musician in the band All That Remains, he decided to go up to Destiny and introduce himself and just say hello, how you doing?
Yeah.
And Destiny was sitting on the couch on his phone at the time, according to his account. And he was deeply offended that Phil decided to publicize this encounter, because Phil was disappointed that Destiny was acting pretty antisocial. He, he looked up and he gave like a very cold fish handshake, which is not a good look. Not a good look for anyone, but especially for a man.
Also not surprising.
Not surprising either, because, I know that when I met him, he immediately was a little bit sassy to me when he realized I worked for Tim.
Yeah.
Which I didn't read into that too much. I mean, he disagrees with Tim, so maybe he thinks that I'm a certain type of person because I work for Tim. Whatever. I really don't even agree with Tim on most issues. Probably any. Anyway, according to Phil, Destiny was rude because he didn't try to make small talk conversation and he wasn't acting very professional. It was sort of like how a 13-year-old acts at a family reunion on their phone in the corner on the couch, being antisocial. Not a good look for a man in his, 40s?
No, I don't think he's 40 yet.
30s.
Maybe.
Late 30s,
yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, I think we actually might be the same age, or I might be a couple years older than him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I didn't witness it. I don't know what really happened, but I think Phil's account of what happened is credible. And maybe you can argue he shouldn't have tweeted about this and made it public.
That's what I was saying. Why is this on Twitter?
But he just said Destiny's the only person that he's met doing these, since he co-hosts on IRL quite often, he's the first guest that he's met who has been notably rude or not quite as polite as he should be.
Maybe manifesting some drama for
but
some
Destiny
quickies.
had just a total meltdown about it. And
right.
It's like, yeah, maybe Phil shouldn't have tweeted about it, but why do you need to have a full meltdown going off about how you're the talent and you should be treated like royalty?
I'm in the green room. Don't bother me.
I'm talent and you should know this. This is the industry. As if Phil, being a musician for decades, literally, doesn't know green room etiquette.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever.
Yeah, touring and working, I usually didn't go into anyone's green room unless I was either invited in or I needed to take photos in there or something.
Sure.
I'm staying in my green room. My manager was cool. Our road manager, and then who actually acted as my manager for a little bit, he got us our own green room. So it was just me and him in a green room, which was kind of nice. And he managed, I think, one of the other guys on the tour as well. So we kind of had our own little space, which was nice. So I didn't necessarily have to keep my stuff in someone else's green room. But here's something else that I think people shouldn't be putting on the internet. Do you think men should be filming themselves crying and then putting it on the internet? And did you know we were going to talk about this today?
I didn't know that we were going to talk about this today, but I did see you tweet about it.
Yes. Well, can I give you the backstory about why?
Who cried on the internet?
So I had seen this video before somewhere on Instagram as a reel. It's this guy who's filming himself, and this is verbatim what he says. Imagine a guy, full face on camera, and he's like, I just want to show you guys why I do what I do. I work 50 hours a week for this. And then the camera flips back around, and he's driving now. And he pulls into his garage, and it's his daughter who's waiting for him.
Oh, I saw this,
And it's like, oh, happy daddy. And then in the car, she can't hear him. In the car, he's like, I do it for you, babe. I do it for you, babe. It's so weird, right? But it truly is a wholesome moment. My only problem with it is, men, don't do this. Don't upload it into the up onto the internet for clout. People are like, he's not doing it for clout. I'm like, listen, he's getting sympathy praise. All these women are fawning over him. Some not even alpha male, but just dudes who think that they're alphas are like, this is what a real man does. And I'm like, don't cry. And then Lila Rose posted it, I think, on her Instagram. Yeah. And I put the same thing. Hey, men shouldn't be filming themselves crying and then putting it on the internet. I think it got 100 likes, the comment. And then all the women in the replies to me were like, you're not a man. Ooh. You don't have a family. Any guy that has a family would know that this is totally acceptable. And I'm just like, okay, fine. Tag me the next time your husband decides to film himself crying and then throws it up on TikTok.
And did you find that to be a huge turn on when your husband posts a video of himself crying?
There's this other feed called Trad West that posted, that meme where it's girls talking to each other like, men never cry about anything, and then it's underneath it's a scene from Braveheart or something, and it's the Chad crying.
Yes.
So they did the same thing for that, and I said the same thing. Men shouldn't cry on the internet. And then all these dudes were like, take your sensitive beta opinions and take them somewhere else because they're not needed here. And again, I'm like,
clearly
okay,
you're not the sensitive one.
I'm like, take your own selfie crying video and tag me in it so I can see it. Because I want to see it. You think this is perfectly acceptable behavior. And the whole thing that I was saying was, it's perfectly fine for men to cry, for men to express their emotions. It's very different when they record it on a selfie and then upload it to TikTok for clout.
It is. There are plenty of behaviors that are recorded, and then when it's posted, people's reaction is, this behavior is pathological. But really, filming it is the pathological behavior.
Right.
So I did see the video that you just referenced. I thought, if he kept that thought to himself or shared it with a friend, it would be perfectly wholesome.
100%. If his wife recorded it, right? Like if his wife was in the house and recorded her daughter's reaction to dad coming home, wholesome. 100%. I support it. Upload it all day. But I think now that's what he did, what a woman would do.
I think social media is turning everyone into a woman these days.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and this is a whole like larger conversation about like should men cry, or specifically should men cry in front of their girlfriends or wives or children.
Oh, that was a big Twitter thing. I forget who posted that, but
it comes up a lot.
Was it Chase? No, Chase may have retweeted it, but someone said men never ever cry in front of your significant other ever.
Did Chase agree with that opinion? Or
maybe to a certain extent, because a lot of people were like, hey man, if I'm at my father's funeral, I'm probably going to cry in front of my wife.
I mean, I even think that you can cry for other reasons as well that are less grave than your family member dying.
You want to sit on the couch with your wife or girlfriend and you're watching a movie and you feel like crying. That's totally fine. Your wife isn't going to be like, what a pussy, divorce.
Right. And this actually came up, I don't remember which episode, but one time when I was on a panel on whatever, that this subject came up, like, should a man cry in front of his girlfriend or wife or whatever? And Brian, I believe, said that's a definite no, like, she's gonna leave you. I've experienced this. I think he said he experienced it once where he cried in front of a girlfriend of his and then she became repulsed by him and left him, or somehow after that the relationship was permanently changed and she wasn't attracted to him anymore.
That was an event waiting to happen with that guy.
Probably, but my retort was that a woman with healthy attachment style who probably had a good upbringing that gave her those secure attachments is not going to respond with repulsion to the man she is, dating or married to, expressing emotion. I certainly wouldn't be repulsed by that if we have a connection already. But what I do caution women against is men crying in front of them to manipulate them, which definitely happens.
Different. Yeah, no, for sure.
So a lot of women maybe aren't able to differentiate between the circumstances in which it's appropriate or not. But yeah, I think that if a woman expects her boyfriend or fiance or husband not to express negative emotion in front of her other than anger, she probably is expecting him to not be a person.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, too, to speak to women who have endured maybe physical or mental abuse from father figures, from their fathers or whatever, it'd probably be comforting to find a guy who's comfortable enough to be that vulnerable in front of his wife or his girlfriend and have like actual emotional reactions to things that include crying. But also, just imagine being married to some special forces operator. He comes back from 2 tours and he's seen a bunch of his friends get blown up and he has to have a stern face all the time. Like, no, dude, let your husband cry if he needs to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't post it on social media.
That's definitely the pathological part of it for both men and women. I mean, I think it's especially undignified when a man does it because you would expect women to go to social media for community and validation and affirmation, which is the wrong place to find it, but you would expect that from them. You would hold men to a different standard because men and women are different.
Yes.
But did you see that video of the Swiftie sitting outside of the
what was the context of
concert?
that?
She starts singing this song Exile, and I haven't heard it. I don't know what it's about. But this Swiftie apparently thought when you said that, by the way. This Swiftie apparently thought that Exile was specifically written for her. And so
she has mental problems.
She was not just crying, but weeping, retching, like heaving.
What?
In reaction to this song playing, and her 2 friends were like comforting her and holding her. If I were one of her friends, I would not be able to hold a straight face. Seriously.
You'd be laughing.
But whatever. That is highly undignified.
What do you
for anyone to do?
What do you think the average number of people with mental illnesses who consider themselves Swifties are?
Ooh, I mean, but they're Gen Z and millennial women, so you've got to expect they're not
already
right in the
a high
head
number
for the most part, and they're highly medicated too.
Is that birth control?
It's birth control. It's SSRIs.
Is it the water too?
It's therapy. It's the fluoride in the water. I mean, where the list goes on. I have been thinking more and more about birth control and its effects on society. I mean, this is kind of what occupies my mind most of the time, is just what a mess the dynamic between the sexes is right now. I've been reading this book that's actually in my bag right now called Feminism Against Progress by Mary Harrington.
Okay.
She still identifies as a feminist, but she doesn't mean it in the same way that most do. She just thinks, women's interests should be talked about and advocated for. But the idea of what women's interests are to her is much different than, I would say, 99.9% of feminists out there.
Right.
And she has this plan for the future that in order to survive in the era of cyborg feminism, as she calls it, we're going to need to allow men to have their own spaces, and women. We're going to need women to conscientiously object to taking hormonal birth control, and we're also going to need marriage as the building block unit of society to create solidarity between men and women.
This is that author?
Yeah, that author.
Author?
I have not gotten into most of the book yet, but her and this other thinker, Louise Perry, are like everything that comes out of these women's mouths is just liquid gold. I love it.
So here's something that I think you're going to know who I'm talking about, but let's preface it with this. Do you think that people who aren't married, especially younger people, should talk about whether or not marriage is beneficial? Not can they talk about it, because obviously they can talk about it. Should they?
Well, it would be hypocritical of me to say that they shouldn't, because I have.
Right.
Right? And I'm unmarried, and I do think that marriage is something that the majority of people should aspire to do, right?
Yeah.
If they don't think that marriage is a sacrament, then they're really only still talking about optimizing your lifestyle.
Right.
Right.
Right. Which leads me to, do you know who I'm talking about?
No.
I'm talking about Pearl.
Oh.
And I can't stand it. I can't stand this probably perpetually single woman for the rest of her life talking about the ills of marriage and how bad it is for guys and how it's just this, zero-sum game, or it's not a good investment for them. And I'm just tired of it. I'm tired of hearing these ultra-feminist, and she is a feminist, the way that she talks. She'll say that she's not, she's unwoke or whatever. But I think that her overall message is feminism for men, kind of, in a way. Like, oh, you don't need to get married. No, you need to be a man. You need to be that alpha. It's a bad investment. You know what I mean? Get them prenups signed. And it's like, no. And she was on Andrew Klavan's show, who did a horrible job defending marriage. And she was just like, well, if you look at the statistics, how many, like 50% of these marriages end in divorces. And Andrew was like, well, you're not looking at certain types of groups. So if you're looking at religious couples who go to church together, who raise families together in the church, who have any sort of like religious leaning, their divorce rate is significantly lower. But, he never brought that up. But he was just... the one thing that she does kind of get right is the court system when it comes to who gets custody as far as kids are concerned. Because the way I look at it, if I get married and if I have kids, I'm responsible to those kids or for those kids, especially financially, physically, everything, right? So if I get divorced, I still have a financial commitment to those kids. So these women who are like, yeah, it doesn't work out for these guys. It's a bad investment. They take everything from you, child support. It's like, no, you owe child support. That is your duty as a man.
Right. Well, forgive me if I'm prying, but did you get a prenup?
No.
Okay. Just wondering.
I have nothing.
I mean, she's past the point of just saying, get a prenup. She just thinks that men should not get married,
correct.
Period.
Correct. I think so. She'll say, no, I don't think that. I think people should, but it's not the best thing. I think that's what her argument would be. It's not in men's best interest to get married.
I'm bad at reading people, and after watching so much of Pearl and reading her tweets, I have no idea what her real reasons are for doing this.
Look at some stuff. Oh, you're talking about like her ulterior motives?
If she even has ulterior motives. I mean, is she really even intelligent enough to have ulterior motives is what I'm asking myself.
I don't think so.
People would be better off not to listen to her at all. But
I agree.
I do feel bad for her because if you look into her past content, she's talked about her self-esteem issues and her fraught relationships with other women. And I feel I have this theory that perhaps she has this disordered attachment to women and possibly is a closeted lesbian, even though I don't believe lesbians exist.
Wait, what?
I don't believe that lesbianism is even a real thing.
Really?
I mean, nor do I think that gay is really a state of being that someone can be in. You know what I mean?
Right.
You agree, right?
They're just making conscious decisions in who they want to sleep with or who they want to be sexually attracted to. So it's never this thing like, I am born this way. I am gay. And the more important word that is am. Right? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Like no one is gay.
Like that's a huge statement to make.
Right.
Right?
But I get it. I understand it.
Yeah. And
people do gay things.
It's a very uncomfortable conversation to have after we've been beaten over the head with the idea that you are born that way, right? Yeah. But I think that, it obviously has a lot to do with someone's upbringing, a lot to do with their friendships and relationships and their past experiences. There are kind of two profiles of lesbians, is like the ones who've been aggressed by men in some sense or traumatized by fathers or partners. And then also the ones who are just hopping on a phase or a social contagion bandwagon. Right.
You always hear that, oh, yeah, I had my lesbian phase in college. Like that's a trope in movies and things like that.
Yeah. And then it also goes with this online community if you're a lonely person who is not socially adjusted well. But anyway, back to Pearl. I'm not good at reading what her intentions are. And I really do hope that she, steps away from the internet because she's clearly addicted to negative attention, which is a narcissistic trait.
Right.
Because really they just want that feedback regardless of what it is.
Which is so weird to me. Because if I'm getting any sort of negative feedback online, I shut it off for a while.
It's a supply that they need regardless of the quality. But actually for Lent, I've given up reading comments.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that can't be right because you replied to my comment about you not coming on the show anymore.
So I only have notifications on for
people that I
follow.
Gotcha.
So that's why I saw yours.
So you didn't
I've sworn off looking at comment sections or looking at any DMs, which is a whole other
Do you get a
can
lot?
of worms. Oh yeah.
Wow.
Like I don't look at my DM requests anymore.
Really?
Because I found that was a self-destructive habit of mine. And, but when I was like in my trolling days on the internet, like before I had more of a public presence, it was one thing. Like I didn't really respond to negative feedback like that. But then as the stakes have been raised, and this is, my career now, then I started feeling some type of way about it. And that was my sign to stop reading.
I'm gonna remember a question I was gonna ask, but quick question, because you mentioned career. If and when, and I think it's going to be more when you do get married, are you going to give up the public persona and focus on home? Or are you going to continue to do it until maybe you have kids or something like that?
I can honestly say I have no idea.
Okay.
I really don't know.
That's good.
And I don't think that in order to dedicate myself wholly to marriage and family that I would need to step away from what I do now, because it's something that can be done in a lot of different ways. Like it can be done from home. Like there are plenty of examples of people who do that. But I don't know how it's going to serve me or serve God in the future either. So it really just comes down to discernment. Okay,
well, talking about the people who feed off negativity, especially online, my wife not necessarily that she wanted us to talk about Love is Blind, but she mentioned Love is Blind. And I'm sure you know about this, one cast member on the show who referred to her. She said that she looked like Megan Fox, and she's completely getting roasted. She definitely doesn't. She looks nothing like her, not even remotely close. But when you mentioned this sort of feedback loop of negativity and how some people thrive off of it, my wife said that this is what that person's doing. She's thriving off of it, where any sane person would want to almost be driven to suicide seeing what people are saying about her. And I'm just wondering, I was like, what drives these women? Is it fame for 15 minutes? Is it just all that attention? Like, what is the difference between men and women when it comes to attention? And is it different types of attention that we kind of feed off of? Because I think it's like, when I feed off attention, it's probably about things I'm either physically able to do, or I've made some mentally or just this intelligent statement that people are praising me for. I'm like, yes, that's good. But it has nothing to do with my looks or drama or anything like that.
You get into a lot of online scraps, though.
Yeah.
You do. It's shocking.
No, but I think those are more intellectual scraps, kind of, and theological scraps, which I think are more justified for guys.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. I mean, in a lot of ways, for a woman on the internet, I've realized that how you look and the impression that you give people is actually more important than what you say and what you think. So you can either take that as a discouraging element of it, or you can just work with the way the internet works. And I've had to adapt, definitely.
Yeah.
But feeding off attention on the internet, it's not good for anyone, obviously.
Right. I think it's worse for girls. It's almost like bullying with girls.
Do you think the chick on Love is Blind said that about herself in order to get backlash?
I don't think she said it in order to get backlash. I think someone said that she catfished her way into a fiance, which is kind of brilliant because you've seen the reaction of her meeting him for the first time, right? And have you seen this?
No.
Okay, but you know how the show functions.
Yes, I do.
They're in pods. They can't see each other. They're basically dating, and when I say dating, they're just talking to each other, finding out more about each other until one of the parties decides to propose.
It's retarded.
It's supremely retarded. I've always hated the idea for the show. It's a hate watching. Just look at how dumb these people are and what they're putting them. Anyway, so this guy is just talking to this woman. I think the topic of who she looks like, she brings it up. She's like, oh yeah, well, people are saying, I guess if people say I look like anyone, it's Megan Fox. And the guy's like, oh, really? Oh, interesting. Okay.
Come on.
And so this guy was talking to another girl at the same time who is clearly more attractive.
Right.
He was into both of them.
But she didn't talk herself up.
Exactly.
Right.
So he picked out the one who said, she looked like Megan Fox. I don't think that was the reason. Anyway, they meet each other for the first time. She does this cringe shuffle in heels, like runs toward him. And as soon as they embrace, he looks at the camera and it's just dead inside. And they've just been roasting her on the internet. And she's thriving. My wife is like, this woman's thriving. Like her profile hasn't gone to private. She's thriving off of this.
Well, I think that's the reason why most people go on Love is Blind or a lot of these shows is to get Instagram followers, especially for the women.
Yes.
So you know when they're clout chasing off of it. But when you see that scene where they walk into the room and meet each other for the first time, almost every time it's instant dread in their eyes.
Yeah.
It's in an instant whether or not they're going to work out. I don't know if any couple from that show has stayed together.
Yeah, there are a couple. And I think one couple has a child or is having a child. But of all the seasons, I don't know how many seasons. It's the
exception,
weird.
Not the rule.
Right,
obviously.
Exactly.
But the whole idea behind it is so retarded because you need to know how someone smells, most importantly. Maybe not even how they look.
Right.
You need to have your pheromones engaged in order to know whether this person matches you genetically, right?
Yes.
Whether that is a right mate to make children with, and regardless of whether you plan on having children, it still matters to you.
You want to be
your lizard brain is actually controlling you.
Right. You want to be physically attracted with someone in order so that the child-making experience is more pleasurable.
I think if they were blindfolded and in the same room, then it might work better than having the screen between them like they're in a confessional.
Because I can kind of tell when a voice is fat. There's
By
a certain
voice?
type of breathing. There's probably more. Yeah,
I don't know how they can't tell, and especially when they ask someone like what race they are. Like, okay, you can hear that.
Yeah. I know who's black.
Yeah.
I know who's black. I know who's white.
I mean.
The Asians might be a little bit difficult, especially if they were born here and, have no accent.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
But I like to think I would be able to tell. But the whole idea that looks don't matter is just...
It's ridiculous.
It's
ridiculous. I mean, it plays a part. How big or how small it is, it's really up to the person. But in my own experience, I was recruited for this show, Married at First Sight. I don't know if you ever heard of this. But this was a show that was on TLC, which, different premise, but you're just basically paired through the producers and panels of the show to be matched up with someone.
Yeah.
You meet them you meet him or her for the first time. I'm using the wrong pronouns. And then you have to get married to that person in the first episode of the show in order for the show to continue.
Right.
So I got through a couple of interview phases, and it was right before the phase that they were going to offer me, okay, you one of the people that want to come on. But I had been engaged before that, and I asked my ex-fiance, I said, hey, I might be doing the show. How do you feel about that? I feel it might be a little bit of a slap in the face to just marry someone that I've never met before while we had this engagement. Mm-hmm. And she was like, do what you want to do. And I was like, okay, appropriate. Why am I even talking to you right now?
Yeah, I would feel the same way as her.
Yeah. But I eventually didn't do it. And after, I would have had a sneaking suspicion that they would have matched me with someone who was anti-me in every sort of way for good TV.
Just for the drama.
Yeah, I think so.
I have fantasized about like being a producer on one of these messy TLC shows because I'm such a shit stirrer. I would love it, but at what cost? At what human cost?
Yeah, what advancement of society are you contributing towards?
Yeah, I would be actively making society a worse place.
Speaking of making society a better place, let's talk about, Catholic theocracy or something like that, because we did talk a little bit about it on the last show. I just can't remember what we talked about.
Oh gosh.
What I've been dealing with recently is I've been dealing with a lot of Protestants, as I have done since the start of the new nation and toward the end of I'm Doing Great. I'm just still dealing with a lot of them. There are a couple of good ones who
I've been seeing
still
your
follow
Twitter
us.
spats with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know what to do about that. I really don't know what to do.
What to do about
I don't know if
Protestants?
there's any net positive or anything positive at trying to evangelize these people and saying you're wrong. You are in a false church. You are in a false religion. You are absolutely wrong, and I worry about the salvation of your soul.
Okay. You are more likely to see, I think, someone who identifies as a nun, or not a N-U-N, but an N-O-N-E.
Yes.
In RCIA, or what is now OCIA.
Wait, is it called OCIA?
I think they changed the name.
So
I forget the acronym, but they changed the name of RCIA. You're more likely to see someone coming from no religious background in RCIA or OCIA, whatever, than a Protestant.
That makes sense.
Because I think they're just more obstinate or less open to a different idea of the Christian faith.
It's weird because when I
would be too.
I know Protestants, especially online, who have converted to Protestantism from Catholicism as an adult, and I'm just like, that's weird.
But it's really because of the social issues that are affecting the church right now. It's because of the scandals. It's because of the Pope and
but
the
that's
online
so
discourse.
Superficial, I think.
It is superficial, but that's the reality of it. People are paying attention to the superficial aspects and what will make them look cool on the internet.
But it's hypocritical,
and they're looking at what religion is the most based and which one will make me look cool and what will give me a status symbol, when that is obviously not what your religious practice is supposed to be. I would much more respect someone who is, a devout Muslim than someone who chose Catholicism for clout.
Right. Yeah,
obviously.
That is weird.
There's more hope for them.
I love Catholicism because it's true. In my opinion, it's true. I don't want to say I love the way it makes me feel because it's gay, but I do love the way that I worship compared to all the other denominations.
Well,
and
we
that
have a
sounds gay
heritage.
too. Right. We have a history. That's what's really important to me. As someone who loves history, we've had a history for so long that when I see a lot of these non-denominational people, especially, and even like Lutherans or Baptists or, Calvinists or whatever, I feel a historical connection to my religion. And I don't know if it's missed on those people and they solely just rely on what is in the Bible and their own interpretation of it, where there's no connection.
It's missed on a lot of Catholics, though.
It is.
You've got to admit that, too.
Yes, it is, 100%.
There are a lot of... maybe most Catholics, at least in the United States or in the West, who are making it up as they go along just as much, if not more, than Protestants who subscribe to this idea of, interpreting the Bible for yourself and on your own. Yeah,
how many boomers
which brings me back to my polemic that the printing press is the reason why all of our social institutions have crumbled.
Yeah.
It is really the reason, because...
people have mass
the Bible
access.
Was then put into the home and mass produced, and it became a product.
Right. And when Luther was like, hey, print these in our language.
Yeah. And it's a nice idea. Right. But it has been a disaster for the human race. The printing press.
You think so?
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting.
The printing press led to the Reformation.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. The Reformation led to the Enlightenment.
Right.
The Enlightenment, then the Industrial Revolution.
Right.
The Industrial Revolution gave us feminism.
Yeah.
And look where we are now. And,
the slippery slope of the printing press.
People say often, like, why do you think that we live in such a unique time? Like, every society thought that the end times were nigh. Everyone thought that they were living in the most unique time period of human history. But in reality, we actually do live in the most unique period of human history. We really do. And it's scary.
Yeah.
And because of hormonal birth control, because of the internet and the nuclear bomb.
Yeah.
We actually live in the most unique time period of human history.
Yeah,
and
that makes sense now.
I'm not saying like we're special snowflakes, but we are.
Right.
You know what I mean?
100%.
Respond accordingly.
Right.
The end times are nigh.
Yeah.
I
haven't thought about it that way.
People really cope with the idea that, we just think we're special, but we're not. Like, no, you were chosen for such a time as this.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's deep.
And we don't have what it takes.
Okay, so how are you now with, because I've spoken to about this issue with a couple of other guests. Do you go to a Novus Ordo Mass, or do you go to a traditional Latin Mass, or do you go to something reverent?
I was going to traditional Latin Mass more often when there was a low Mass at 4 p.m. near me, but they changed it because one of the monks at the priory that's near me went on a sabbatical, so they're less available. But anyway, I go to a Novus Ordo most of the time now.
I love a low Mass.
It is a reverent Novus Ordo.
Oh, yeah.
But,
that's cool.
The Mass is the Mass. There's no control I have over the diocese that I'm in.
Right.
I really try to stay away from ecclesial politics or online discourse at this point. I do not pay attention to it.
It seems like that's the best thing to do, right?
You call it the medieval mindset, right?
Grind set.
The medieval grind set. Sorry.
Right. I don't. Brian from Catholicism, I think, may have termed that.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I do in a way because I can't help but see it, because I follow a lot of people who do talk about the bureaucracies of the Vatican and everything that's going on. And this document, the Pope released this document, and the Synod said this, and these regional bishops and cardinals said that. And I'm just like,
talking to the uninitiated normie saying that there's such a thing as a synod on synodality.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they would look at you like you are like you're an alien.
I know. I get that.
It makes us look like clowns.
It really does.
That's why I don't bring it up.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I address the root issues, especially with anyone who wants to ask me a question. I was in this spat with this guy yesterday, which you're right. You are always in spats. But I had made a comment on something, and then he got into my DMs because he said Instagram wouldn't let him reply to one of my comments or something like that. But he said, well, you guys call your priests fathers, so like the Bible and Jesus said, call no man your father. And I sent him, I said, okay, here's an article from CatholicAnswers.com regarding that specific question and the history and the, not etymology, but of the context of Christ saying that, because there are plenty of times in the New Testament where I think it's Paul, other people like Job have called themselves fathers to people that aren't his sons, and being someone's spiritual father. And I sent him that, and he didn't read any of it. But he's just about like, oh, well, your pope isn't recognized. He's not the real pope. And I just said to him, this is what happens all the time. I said, thank you for disregarding my direct answer to your direct question and moving on to talking about the Pope now.
He shifted the goalpost.
It's not even that he shifted the goalpost. It's that he totally changed the substance of the conversation.
Yeah.
It's like, listen, we can talk about the Pope, but just address what I told you. Come in here with an open mind, which you accused me of not having. You asked a question. I gave you an answer. What do you think about it? No one ever has a response where they're saying, okay, well, this paragraph from, Letter to Romans seems interesting when he calls himself a father, right? And how Christ meant, when he said father, he was talking more about rabbis and teachers and not necessarily biological fathers, because back then, words meant different things. You know what I mean? You didn't have to call your actual brother your brother. It was meant for very close acquaintances, friends, relatives. You can call your cousin your brother, right? So when people will be like, well, Mary had other kids because people said, "Oh, aren't those the sons of Mary and they're brothers of Jesus?" Yeah, they're brothers, as in, Brett's my brother, and I see him, I'll be like, "Hey, what's up, brother?" Like that kind of colloquial term at the time. Mary did not have children. She didn't have other children. It was only Christ. Peter didn't produce any, or not Peter, but Joseph didn't produce any other offspring with Mary. She's perpetually a virgin, and she is sinless. So I want people to understand that.
The objections never end. Like, you can pick one out of a hat. Mm-hmm. The counter arguments to those objections never end. It's really just a front for the hardness of someone's heart.
But their own church fathers agree with the Catholic position on Mary's perpetual virginity and sinlessness. Luther, Calvin, they all agree with that. Mm-hmm. I don't know why these people have to reach into their own narcissism and say, no, they're wrong. Doctors of the church are wrong. 2,000 years of history is wrong, even though, the idea of Mary's perpetual virginity is not something that is, it's not 2,000 years old, but it's also not recent. I think it goes back to 1200 or something like that. But still, I just love how,
it's a lot of hubris to say that
five solas on Twitter knows more than Augustine.
Right. It's a lot of hubris. It's a lot of presumption to believe that for 1,500 years, everyone was wrong. I mean, that's actually disastrous.
What did people do before
the
canon?
idea living as, for someone living as a Sedevacantist, for instance,
mm-hmm.
That is actually apocalyptic to live in that reality, to think that the vast majority of practicing Catholics in the world are not receiving real
legitimate
sacraments. I would be losing my shit. That is a dystopian reality. And they're just acting like this is just the way it is. How are you so calm about that?
What about the Benevacantists?
Oh, what is that?
That's where they think that the last true pope was Benedict, I think, because Benedict didn't actually he didn't actually resign his office.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, I've heard that hypothesis.
Yeah, the idea of Savacantism is wild. Ever since who was it? Pope Pius XIII. That was the last true pope, and there's been anti-popes since then, and anti-bishops, anti-cardinals, and now anti-priests. If that's your position, every practicing priest that is living today, who would have been ordained by bishops and cardinals, all going all the way back to, let's say it is Pope Pius XIII, are totally illegitimate now. That's wild.
Okay, if we do the math, and the last validly ordained priests were ordained prior to Vatican II.
Yeah.
How old would they have to be now?
Well, are
they all dead?
That's 60 years.
Are they all dead?
So you add 20 years to that and say they were ordained when they were 20. So now that's an 80-year-old priest, maybe.
Yeah, and I'm not going to put my Sedevacantist friends on blast. I love them, but they don't go to mass.
E. Michael Jones said that is one way to walk yourself out of the church, right? That if you hold yourself above other Catholics who go to, let's say, Novus Ordo, or you hold judgment upon other Catholics for going to different masses than you, they say that is one way to exit the church. One way to leave the church is putting yourself above other Catholics. So a lot of people got his message wrong, because he didn't say the Latin Mass is wrong. He never said that. He said the Latin Mass, if thought of as in a certain way, as being better than the other mass, is a doorway out of the church. It's like one of those things where if you start eating bad food more often, that is one way to become unhealthy, mm-hmm. right? Or thinking that I don't know, what would be a better sort of, you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. All of what you're saying, it just makes me very glad that I sequester myself from all of that discourse online.
You're probably right. You probably have, you're sticking to the pop culture, you know what I mean? And not necessarily involving
I know my
yourself,
lane and I stay in it.
Which is good. And it's disciplined.
I also try my best not to turn people off of our beliefs by bringing it up too often.
Other Catholics or just people in general?
Well, for instance, my listeners on Pop Culture Crisis, for instance, I would guess most of them are not Catholic. I think a good portion of them are religious.
Right.
A good portion of them think that at least religious people have good points about the social issues of our day. Mm-hmm. When it's relevant, I bring it up, and when it's not, I don't.
Yeah.
And I try my best to not be a stereotypical, I guess, Bible thumper.
Sure. You know your crowd. You know your audience, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And, you know,
Maybe
I have no problem with
wrong.
even being friends with people who are not religious or people who disagree with all of my beliefs.
Right.
I would happily be friends with any liberal or leftist out there if I like them. But the problem is it's a one-way street.
Mm-hmm.
They're not willing to meet us halfway.
Yeah.
I would happily be friends with someone who is pro-choice. But if they let me express my beliefs and don't have me in the closet about my beliefs.
I don't know if I can make a new friend like that. I think if I had a friend for a very long time and, you know, it was finally revealed that he is a very pro-abortion type person, you know, I think we'd have our disagreements, but, you know, I've known you for 20 years or something like that. You know, I'm not going to end our friendship based on that, but I'm not going to go out of my way to make a new friend who is vehemently pro-murder.
I would.
Really?
I disagree. Like, I would.
Maybe
but
that's
the problem is, for the most part, most of them would cut you off, like, the second they know your beliefs.
Yeah.
If they didn't do that, that says they at least have some base
good
level
sign of character.
Decency.
Yep.
And that says something good about their character.
Yep.
And, yeah, I would be friends with that person.
I guess when you put it that way, that makes more sense. It's almost good to have that friend who you not necessarily quarrel with all the time, but you have a good intellectual sparring with.
Sure.
Yeah. They can flex your muscles and stuff.
We're also, like, I'm talking about making female friends. And I think that men would be better at having ideological disagreements in a friendship than women.
Yeah. I think that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys have better things to talk about, maybe.
Like gossip.
Yeah. Right?
Well, no,
you
what
shouldn't
women
be discussing
talk about,
politics
it's
in
so
the first
crazy.
place anyway.
Men do not understand the way that women talk to each other is just, it's all about people and relationships and the way that he said that. And what do you think he meant by that? And do you think that he felt like this when he said it?
Right.
Do you think that he thought about it later? It's like, I love talking about all of that.
Mm-hmm.
It does go into gossip and...
Oh, this was... yeah, you're right. You're right. This was brought up on a whatever clip that someone had brought up that women will think about a conversation they had previous and will dwell on it and will think about, I could have said this way, I could have said that way. What did he mean when he said it like this?
Oh, yeah.
And then Brian was like, no, men don't do that. And I'm like, speak for yourself, dude. Like, I've had conversations where they've been pretty important conversations, whether they've been in business or whether they've been in other things, where I have thought about, oh, well, maybe if I did this differently, you know, a different outcome would have happened. I don't dwell on it necessarily, but I think that was the thing that was missed, where women might dwell on it more, where men think about it and then move on.
Right.
Right?
Men are thinking about the outcomes and results of things.
Yes.
I think that women are constantly thinking about the interior life of other people. Mm-hmm. And we can't stop. I replay conversations in my head all the time. I play conversations that haven't happened yet in my head all the time. It's literally the only thing that I think about.
Really?
Yeah. Is what's going on in this person's heart and mind. Like... This is the way that women think and the way that women feel, more importantly.
Even close friends.
And that's why, like, the language of facts over feelings does not resonate with women at all.
I get
Unless
that.
you're weird, like me.
Right.
And I've even gravitated away from that. Like, you know, I might have thought that, like, facts over feelings and, like, Ben Shapiro destroys SJWs was super cool and based when I was in high school. But the older I've gotten, the more experience I've had in the real world, the more intuitive and feelings-based I've become.
Yeah.
Because logic doesn't resonate with most people, but most especially women.
I work with a couple of people who are maybe now autistic. And I say that because I have a new job now. It's a corporate job. And I've realized that maybe this has changed over time. And I don't know, just because I don't have the experience, I don't have the background in corporate America. But people will say whatever they're thinking to you. And I had this, listen to this. So, 2 15-minute breaks a day. On either of them, I do a rosary. I either go outside and walk around and do a rosary, I go into a quiet room and do a rosary. I was finishing a rosary. I had literally just crossed myself, right, doing this rosary, and one of my coworkers comes up to me and he says, can you believe we got the Fox News in the break rooms? This place is full of religious nuts. And I don't know if he saw me cross myself, but I'm holding my rosaries gigantic.
Probably not, right?
Right. I don't think he would have seen me. And I didn't say anything to him. I was like, yeah, Fox News is kind of boomery, right? Like, I don't watch that. But I told my wife, and she just said, imagine if you would have said, yeah, you want to talk about like religious extremists, you're so more extreme than what he's thinking, right? I said, yeah, I don't know if I want to tell this guy that, because he's an older guy. He started to talk about astrology and psychiatry directly after that. And I was like, okay, I'm going to be as good of a friend to this guy as I possibly can, because, you know, if that day ever comes, he's going to skip me, look at me and say, you were cool. And I said, okay. But just the no filter that people have, I don't know if this is like this everywhere in corporate America now, but...
Well, I have no experience in corporate America, so
right? I don't know.
I'm kind of glad that I missed that train.
I work around... it's good, too, because there's a mix of men and women, and that happens. I didn't really think that there would be that many women in sales, but there's a lot of women.
Oh, yeah, they're super concentrated in marketing and stuff.
It's so weird, though, because now the office has turned into kind of like home, where...
Are you getting longhoused?
No. I don't think so.
Okay.
But the women will have blankets that they wear. They'll be watching TV while they're working, you know, on their phone. Someone's watching Grey's Anatomy in between calls and stuff. And the decorated is kind of like, I want to put some icons on my little desk space and stuff like that. But
would that go over well?
I don't care.
We'll see.
Yeah, this one girl, she'll never listen to this, so this is fine, because no one's going to know that the show exists at work.
Yeah.
She comes up to me, and she starts talking about guns. And she said something, I don't know how the conversation started, but she started talking about it. And she was like, well, do you think that someone like my aunt, who had a husband that was physically abusive to her, do you think he should have the right to own a gun? And I said, was he arrested? Did he spend time in jail? What's the context? And she's like, does that really matter? Do you think physically abusive people should have guns? And I said, well, I don't know. You kind of sound like someone who would like red flag laws and, you know, kind of rattle on people. If you heard him say something, I don't know, a little extreme, and you knew he had guns, you'd probably call the cops on him. She's like, well, I mean, if I heard a guy arguing with his wife and I know he had guns and it became violent, and I said, yeah, okay. I didn't want to continue the conversation because I was like, we're at work. I don't want to be labeled as like a gun nut.
Yeah, I think it's because liberals always think that they're in friendly ideological company, and they have no concept of...
They see me, I have hipster tattoos and stuff like that, and they're just like, oh, this guy loves Bernie.
Most people would probably look at you and think that you're...
But my mustache?
Liberal. Yeah.
My sneakers? New Balances?
Yeah, I think that you dress more like a leftist.
I'm
not trying to insult you.
More like a doofus. Like a leftist doofus.
I mean, but yeah, they just don't have a concept that anyone has, anyone around them in like a corporate environment would disagree with them.
Same girl's like, oh, you're Catholic, huh? Yeah, nomine Padre. And I'm like, okay. She's Presbyterian. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, you're Calvinist. That's very interesting. Like, yeah, my father is a Presbyterian pastor. It's why we moved down here, blah, blah, blah. And I don't want her to bring up, like, I don't know how to kind of defend my workspace if she comes up saying, so like, hey, so what's with Catholics and IVF? I just want to be like, this isn't the place.
I mean, it's like, isn't work supposed to be a safe haven from talking about religion and politics?
It's supposed to be. Doesn't stop anyone.
Yeah. Like, I wouldn't be the one that brings it up. I really wouldn't.
Yeah, when I'm at work, I like talking about work. I'm asking you questions like, hey, you know, what's the best way to approach this position as far as where I'm at in this contract?
Do you feel like you would jeopardize your job if you talked about those things honestly?
I don't think so. I don't think so, but I don't want to put myself into that situation where I may find out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't want to do that. Well, to be fair, I did say that I'm a fascist to this girl.
Oh. Yeah. Well, that changes things.
I said, well, she was like, well, what, she asked some question. I can't remember what it was. And she was like, well, what do you mean by that? And I was like, well, you know, I'm kind of a fascist, not in the way you're thinking. I'm kind of about a Catholic theocracy, you know, like a Catholo-fascist, which has very different
so you
distinctions.
outed yourself.
Yeah.
You outed yourself.
Yeah, I think so. To her.
Well, it's going to spread, right?
Girls talk, yeah. No, but she still is very friendly to me, and she still talks to me and helps me out. But
the fortunate thing is that most people actually are apolitical, and they don't really care outside of the internet.
Yeah.
People don't really pay attention or care about these things.
Right. So. And she's a singer, so when she kind of brings up stuff, I'm like, oh, so did you listen to that thing I sent you? You know, Damien Rice, did you listen to the Damien Rice? No, not yet. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Most women especially they don't care about politics.
Right, they don't, right?
At all. They kind of conform to the ideas of the people who are around them or the way they were raised.
I just told her, I was like, when the gun thing came up, I'm like, listen, because she was talking about the Gadsden flag, because she came up, that's how it started. She came up to me and she showed me this picture of, the Gadsden flag?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a Gadsden flag license plate, which are very popular here. They're yellow.
Yeah.
But then the personalization said slay.
Okay.
So she was like, this is kind of weird that some like really 2A guy had some like really kind of gay slay
on his
and I was like, yeah, it's kind of weird. But
it's a gay libertarian who's defending his marijuana farm with an AR-15, obviously.
And what I said was, I was like, oh, well, the Gadsden flag kind of cringe. And then I showed her my St. Michael the Archangel stomping on the snake in the Gadsden flag, saying, I tread where I please.
Based.
And she was like, what does that mean? I was just like, well, libertarians are kind of gay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what that means. And I think she was like, well,
that's something we can all come together on, right?
Yeah.
I hope.
Yeah, I was having a discussion with this guy who I follow some groypers. The groypers tolerate me, maybe. Like an older guy who's kind of a boomer in a way.
For now,
yeah. But one guy said, damn, everything's getting... I'll drop his name, Classic Groysop or Classic Groiper or Classic Groip, whatever. One of those. He knows who I'm talking about if he even listens to the show. But
we'll find out.
He's taken a lot of clips from our Nick episodes and posted them, so I like that.
Okay.
But he posted a picture of his receipt from Five Guys, and he's just like, why is everything so expensive now? Burger, fries, and a soda was like $21.
Right.
And I said, skip the fries and the soda, just do the burger, because the fries are, they're deep fried in seed oils. Yeah, the Five Guys fries are always soggy and stuff like that.
Yeah. And
he's like, yeah, it is peanut oil, not terrible, but still bad, but I just like fries. And I was like, cool. Some dude came in and was like, fuck, peanut oil is still a seed oil. It's horrible for you because the flygloxerates dystericums is awful for you. And I said, listen, man, having a Five Guys serving of fries once a month isn't going to kill you at all, especially if you're somewhat fit. I said, if you just finished a workout where you burned 1,500 calories, by all means, have some fries, have a Diet Coke, and have your burger. Burger's a great source of protein. Like, you probably burn 1,500 calories, get 1,000 calories back in you. The dude was like, oh, I'm glad to see that I'm conversing with a troglodyte who doesn't understand basic health. So I Googled, can one burn 1,500 calories in a workout? I was obviously vindicated, where Google did say, yes, depending on someone's size, race, gender, physical fitness, one can burn 1,500 calories in one workout if it's prolonged over a certain amount of time and certain exercises are done, cardio, strength training, whatever. And he was like, oh, you clearly don't know what you're talking about. And then
it's not about the calories, it's about the seed oils.
Well, I looked at his profile, and it said he followed all these libertarian feeds, and I said, oh, this makes sense now. The moral of that story was try not to converse with libertarians as much as you can, and even though a buddy who I had on the show, who actually is probably had some drama with some groypers, I don't take sides. Maybe a little bit, but...
I think that my Twitter algorithm thinks that I'm like really into Ray Peat. Like, have you heard of this?
Who's this?
This nutritionist.
This?
I don't know anything about him. I don't even know if he's still alive. Ray
Why
Peat.
Don't you hit the not interested?
I should.
Yeah, I do it all the time.
But I'm also morbidly curious what they think. So he thinks that ice cream is a superfood. He promotes
like whole milk, raw milk ice cream.
Haagen-Dazs specifically.
No.
And he promoted this carrot salad where you shave carrots and then put them in like coconut oil.
That's what my wife does. That's what my wife will have.
She's a Peter.
No. She does shave carrots, but she puts them in apple cider vinegar, I think.
Yeah, it's something like that.
Yeah, she does shave carrots. I don't know.
So she's a Peter.
She didn't hear it from him though. She's been doing that. She's been doing that for years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, she hopped on the trend before it was cool. Yeah.
She maybe created the trend, unbeknownst to me.
Yeah.
My wife is a trendsetter, super based, very, very, very strong woman, deep-willed, loving, but also very standoffish.
Okay, I saw you getting in an argument with people who thought that you weren't married, and you posted a picture of you and your wife looking very nice.
You're talking about the two crazy Latinas or the two fat Latinas?
Okay, listen.
Yeah.
Listen. They're friends of the show.
No, that's what their name is. Two Crazy Latinas.
I know, but they're friends of Pop Culture Crisis,
okay.
as are you.
Yes.
So I wanted to stay out of it.
Okay,
I'm not going to take any sides.
You did.
I love them.
Right.
And you. And you're both great.
Yeah.
I hated to see you fighting on the TL. But they thought that you weren't married.
I didn't realize who they were until I saw the one girl, I can't remember who it was, and I said, oh, when I had the show with I'm Doing Great, I think we may have invited her onto the show or something like that. And the reason why she decided to come onto my timeline was because she made a comment, or someone else made a comment, and I think I may have retweeted her comment. It was like, why are women on the internet? It was just some dumb take, and I see you pursing your lips right now like, yeah, you probably deserved it. Like, fine, sure, whatever. But I think she was accusing me of being like some soy boy beta male with a lisp. She said, I have a lisp. And then someone was like, I've been on Mike's show. No lisp confirmed. You're wrong.
Yeah.
And oh, no. What she started making fun of my wife. She didn't think I wasn't married.
Yeah, that was uncalled for.
I guess she looked into my public profile now and she was like, oh, yeah, your wife's a 3 or something like that.
Yeah, she was saying your wife's mid or whatever.
And everybody,
I was like, okay, that's obviously not true.
Everybody in the replies was like, can you see yourself? Like that. And I know you don't want me to make fun of her in front of you, which I feel bad about doing. I didn't say it, but I was just like, my wife is, I don't know if this is projected jealousy,
she's
but
a beautiful woman.
My wife is beautiful. I think she's gorgeous. I'm not going to be an idiot and just be like, my wife's a 10. We're realistic. I don't rate myself as a 10. I'm an easy 5, maybe. I hold my wife up there. She's a 7. She's an 8. She's gorgeous. She's great. But I posted a picture of us together, and I was like, this is my wife. She posted a picture of my wife with no makeup on, like with our daughter.
I saw that.
And she still looked great. And everyone was like, yeah, I don't see, what are you trying to do here? So that's when I took a little bit of offense to that. Like, listen, like I'm having a problem with you and something dumb you said. I don't understand what you're pulling my wife is. And my wife thought it was funny. She's like, yeah.
Yeah. Is your wife online?
She is. Her profile on Instagram is private and she's only on Instagram. But people will DM her every now and again, or like comment on a photo of mine and tag her being like, do you know what he's saying?
Unhinged.
I don't think I've ever really done it. I will maybe DM somebody and just be like, why did you say that's kind of weird what you said? But I will never DM somebody and be like, you're dumb. You're so dumb.
Well, you're not going to DM somebody's wife.
No, because I don't care. I don't care if I'm having
it really like does something scary to our psychology.
It really
to our
does.
Psyche.
Well, here's the thing. I think people who are born
it's like
after,
road rage.
Yes. Oh, 100%. But I think it also happens to have a different effect on a generation, because in my generation we had physical confrontation in person. You know what I mean? We weren't really fighting over the internet.
Based.
There was a time where after college maybe we started to be more on the internet, but I graduated college in 2006. I had just gotten Facebook in 2005, and that was only when you needed a college invite, right? You had to have a college email. So whenever we had confrontation, it was in person. We weren't even texting anyone, I'm going to beat your ass. It was saying it to that person's face. You know what I mean? So I react a little bit differently toward online beef or online drama, where I'm not going to DM somebody and say, hey, you want to fight? I'll say it in the comments, be like, we should just be fighting. That's why I want to start my company, Go Fight Me. It's kind of like GoFundMe.
Oh.
But what people can do is,
like this.
If there's an internet row, if there's an internet beef, you can challenge the other person to Go Fight Me, where funds are raised from outside observers where they want to see you two fight, to fly the other person to the other person's location. A boxing ring is rented, and it has to be videotaped and put online, and you are required to have a meal with each other after the fight. GoFightMe.com.
I'm not going to do that because I could not win a fight. All I have is crazy going for me.
Both parties have to agree to the fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do like your idea. I like
it's an online
ingenuity.
Duel. It's a duel.
By the way, you have no idea how jealous I am of you for what you just said. You graduated college in 2006, right?
Yeah.
And you didn't have to spend any of your formative years using the internet.
No, when we had to write a paper, we went to the library, Mary.
Yeah.
And we got a bunch of different books, and we had to put those in the footnotes of our paper. My senior thesis, I majored in history, was the relationship between Stalin and Hitler. I couldn't go on to Wikipedia, even though I'm sure it may have existed It may have existed in 2006, but I didn't use it. I must have gotten 10 to 12 books. I read these books. I formulated my own opinions based on what I read, and I cited everything that I read. And that's the way we did things back then.
It's totally different society. And I grew up not knowing life apart from the internet.
It's very weird to say that I graduated college almost 20 years ago. Like, I still don't believe that. Because I don't look in the mirror and say, yeah, I look 40. I don't necessarily feel it unless, like, I wake up and sleeping weird or something like that. Then I feel 40. But I think it's because what we talk about and the show that we had, the show that I have now, our audience has only gotten younger. And when you tend to be more based and real, that audience, you attract a younger audience. So I think I feel a little bit younger through them. I don't know if they necessarily... But that's a good thing. Yeah, no, it is good. I don't know if they necessarily view me as, you know, their what is it, compatriot or something like that. But yeah, I'll be like... I don't want to be like E. Michael Jones, who may come off as like a curmudgeon, like an old curmudgeon who's in his late 70s. But
you definitely don't.
Groypers love him. You know what I mean?
To say nothing negative about E. Michael Jones. You don't come off as a curmudgeon.
I like him. I like the guy. I thought it was a very interesting conversation. My dad turned it off halfway through, he told me. Because I think he has, all love to my father, I think he has a different generational aspect of what anti-Semitism is. And I don't know if EMJ is necessarily anti-Semitic. I think he questions things, and I think he has a very vast historical knowledge where the information that he has might turn off the boomer generation very quickly.
People think that G.K. Chesterton was anti-Semitic these days.
Well, I mean, Martin Luther was extremely anti-Semitic, almost, through his own admission. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the whole anti-Semite. A lot of people. I have a very close friend who I sent the EMJ episode to. He said this is going to get pulled quickly. It's still up. I just think because my audience isn't that big. Like if it was maybe you and you had EMJ on, that episode would probably get pulled down.
Imagine us having E. Michael Jones on Pop Culture Crisis. Like, hey, what do you think of Azalea Banks?
The money going off. well, I think she's really cool.
Like, look at this new Sam Smith music video. What do you think of that? Like,
he'd probably hate it.
We have thought about inviting just random political pundits who know nothing about pop culture.
Jared Taylor.
And just like I don't even know, like a random like political junkie. They're
like
almost
Pat Buchanan or something.
We've
like
had
that?
relatively political people on, and they kind of aren't capable of talking about something other than politics.
Have you ever had Gavin on the show? Gavin would be a great get for Pop Culture Crisis.
Yeah, I haven't thought about that, but maybe I will.
You?
Maybe I will.
His number. I mean, you should have him on the show. I kept on pestering Brian Atlas, who, by the way, I don't. It's what George Costanza's father said. This guy, something about this guy. I don't like this guy. There's just something about him.
You don't like him?
I don't think so. I think he's gotten very popular. I think he's let some of that go to his head, and now he thinks that he's very, very smart. And I think he's just been hearing maybe a lot of smart people talk.
Well, he's around a lot of people who are extremely dumb, which would make someone think that they're very, very smart.
I get that. I understand that. But yeah,
easy life hack.
I was pestering him about getting myself and Gavin on the show. I said, hey, do you want to have one of the co-founders of Vice magazine, who is a very staunch conservative, not very staunch. Gavin's like he's a Gen X conservative. But, having Gavin and I on the show to talk about, what you guys talk about. And he's just like, yeah, maybe next week. Yeah, maybe next week. Yeah, maybe next week. So after about a month of that, I said, forget this guy. And there's some people that know him. I was like, can you just, tell him Gavin and I want to come on the show? Because I asked Gavin, I said, would you want to go on whatever? He said, totally, absolutely. Imagine Gavin McGinnis on the Whatever podcast.
I haven't watched since Michael Knowles was on.
That was a great one.
That was great.
Oh, yeah. I got into a spat about that. That's what it was. That's what the spat with the Latinas was all about.
Oh.
Because she said no woman should allow her man to watch the Whatever podcast. And that's when I said, why do women say things on the internet? That's why I was like, just ban all women.
Do you really believe that, or is that you being hyperbolic and trying to rile people up?
It was me being a little hyperbolic, maybe a little bit flamboyant. But these people have... Now people with internet followings, they have to say these things, right? They don't sit there. They don't think about these things before they post them. They're like, I'm going to say something controversial. I'm going to say something that might be a little bit retarded, but I know it's going to get I know it's going to get engagement. That's the key word, is engagement. I don't know if I've ever posted anything specifically for engagement. If I have a thought about abortion, I type it up there. People agree with me. If it gets 20 looks or if it gets, 10,000 views, whatever. But I'm not doing it to get that engagement.
Sure.
I don't care.
I might benefit from adopting that mindset a little bit more because I'm so restrained and reserved with what I post.
Yeah.
Because when you post something, you're really being quite presumptuous that anyone is interested in your opinion about something.
Right.
It requires a lot of ego to do this.
Well, when you have, let's say, I don't want to take the Latinas, but when you have someone who's of prominence, I don't know who, but let's say that person has 100,000 followers, you assume that people want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah.
So that inflates that ego. Whereas right now, I think I have 500, Twitter followers or something like that, and I make the memes on Instagram because I like making the memes, and Instagram is more about information and just making people laugh, where Twitter is kind of getting into rows, and I just like calling them rows now, Twitter rows. But I would assume that someone with 100,000 followers really does think that people care what he or she has to say.
Yeah.
Which is why when I saw that, I was just like, this is retarded. First of all, I don't think that they speak for all women. I think half of the women would have disagreed with them, because my case was Michael Knowles was on the show, and that was a super informative. He did one 7-hour episode or whatever. He was a 3-hour debate.
In the studio for 9
hours. That's insane.
That is superhuman.
And the conversation wasn't vapid on his side, right? It wasn't unsubstantial. Like, there was plenty of substance in what he was talking about, where any man or boy who had a girlfriend or a wife could easily learn something from it, right? So to just completely dismiss it is retarded. I'm sorry, but that's what it was. And that's when, when I attacked someone's opinion, they decided to attack the looks of my wife, which just proves the retardation that some people have.
That's really a bridge too far. Don't bring a man's wife into it.
It just doesn't make any sense. Don't even bring like some non-existent lisp I have into existence.
Like, where did that come from?
I don't know.
It was just a guess.
Well, I rarely put any media of myself talking on Twitter, like clips or anything like that. So I'm just saying, where do they think I'm somebody else? Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I don't know. It might have just been a wild guess. Just like,
oh, he looks this way, he must have.
I
mean, they were making fun of my looks, which is fine. Absolutely, come for my looks. I mean, I know what I look like. I know what I think I look like. When I look in the mirror, I obviously think I look 2 points better than what I actually am, because that's what mirrors do.
Most people find themselves significantly more attractive than they actually are.
Yes.
Which is...
That might be survival.
It's a survival tactic.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a confidence builder.
Actually, the people who are objectively attractive, I think it's proven they find themselves
less attractive
than they are.
But they're not doing it ironically, right? They're saying, these girls who are 10 on, whatever, and saying, maybe like a 6. And it's just like, no, you're clearly a 10.
It is annoying, though, to like start that whole, like, let's go in a circle and everyone rate yourself.
Did you rate yourself?
I did, but like, what else are you gonna do?
Did you say 6 or? I'm a 6 or 7.
I said 7 because it's just like, I don't know, like,
I did my hair that day.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Like, that's a safe guess.
Did anyone be like, Mary, come on, you're better? Did anyone say that, or you were just kind of left in the wind?
Like, I really don't care.
Yeah.
But it's kind of a bizarre thing that he always does that every single episode when. Someone's self-rating means literally nothing.
So it may not be him thinking that he's smart. I think what it is that I don't necessarily like the flow of his show. I understand that
there's no flow.
I understand that he gets strikes and stuff like that, but allow adults to say the word rape.
Oh, yeah. Even
Calling
YouTube relaxed their TOS on that. They relaxed the TOS so you don't have to say grape anymore. You are allowed to say the word rape as long as you don't graphically describe the act. Right. So that's not even against TOS. I think it's kind of arbitrary to stop people from saying that word.
Okay, yeah. Any technical difficulty, too? He seemed to have had a problem.
It gets tense. Yeah. And there's no reason to... Other than, obviously super chat revenue to keep the show going for that long.
And he doesn't get it from YouTube, right?
The conversation degrades after the second hour.
Yeah.
And I'm someone who does this for a living, and I've done long streams, and I'm like, my entire body is in pain by the end of
I think you cut out that first hour from the show asking people, first of all, every time I hear the word situationship, I want to throw my computer. That is an invention of Gen Z. To say, are you in a relationship? How long has it lasted? And what situation? It's a relationship.
Well, it's not. It's not, because if there's no definition to it,
if you
it's not a
have
relationship.
relations with someone, whether it's platonic, romantic, physical, whatever, it's just a relationship. That It's incumbent on the person to define the relationship, right? You know what I mean?
I have heard, though, that it's a specific issue with Gen Z dating each other. They're all cheating on each other.
Oh, really?
Like, cheating is just acceptable to Gen Z. It's like unanimously accepted.
Really?
Like, they all
just cheat on each other.
And I think what's resulting is Gen Z women are more trying to date millennial men.
Really? Like guys my age?
Like
or a little
30s,
bit younger. Yeah.
Like 30s. And I mean, I'm dating a guy in his 30s as well. And I love that he is not chronically online and, you know, grew up without a smartphone and didn't have a smartphone even in college.
Right.
Like,
I had a
because that can do
flip.
some profound damage to someone's brain.
Imagine
permanently. I could not date a Zoomer man.
The brain rewiring that would happen if I had a smartphone starting in high school to college would I'd probably be completely different now. Though sometimes I made a rule that when I'm sitting at the dinner table with the family, no phone, I leave it charging or something like that.
Yeah.
My wife's really good about putting the phone down when she sleeps. It's nowhere even near her.
I really just don't like
at work,
looking at my phone.
Yeah, at work, I have my phone charging, and it's horizontal, so it has this cool little clock on it. And whenever I need to, let's say, send an email apart from the business that I am doing, or, you know, see how an Instagram reel is doing, maybe, then I'll check it. But yeah, to do what you said, like people being chronically online, it's good that you're dating an older guy. But there are guys my age who are chronically attached to their phones.
Yeah,
which is sad
but
to see.
It's something you can detach from easier if you started the habit later in life rather than grew up with it.
Yeah.
And that's why Gen Z women they're not going to have a good time trying to find a guy in their own generation.
It got nicer out.
Right? The sun is shining.
That's actually from a book called Pete the Cat and his cool blue sunglasses that I read to my daughter, where Pete the Cat's he's in a bad mood for the first time, and who gives him the glasses? Is it an alligator? Someone gives him the glasses, and he's like, "Here, man, put these on." And Pete the Cat is like a hippie, so he's like, "Far out. The sun is shining. The animals are singing. Everything's gonna be all right." And anyway, have you talked about the girls dancing with their Stanley Cups?
Yeah.
On your show?
Yes, we did.
We don't have to touch upon it.
We did talk about it.
It's like the blue dress, white dress, black dress thing, right? Everyone's torn on it. Conservative guys are either like, I don't see the problem, or they're like, this is horrible. Well, back when
the white and gold, blue and black dress thing happened, that was like a whole like cultural phenomenon. Like people are going to remember that for years. This one is going to be a blip. Like I found out
that it wasn't Mardi Gras, that Joe Enders, who has a show, pointed out and found out that these are actually part of a church group, and they're underage girls. And the beads,
they're not
college age. Were beads that they were selling for kids with Down syndrome or something like
Seriously?
that. Yes.
Oh
yes.
my
So
gosh.
he found.
See, look, my original take was like, why is everyone mad at this? There's nothing wrong with this. Like, get over yourselves.
Right.
But now that I've given it a little more thought, like
it is the fall of Western society.
No, it's not the root of all evil. It's not the downfall of Western society, but it is grotesque. It's a little grotesque, and I would not be doing that.
What makes it grotesque?
Me personally, I would not be found.
Is it the physical dancing, or is it just the vibe around the whole thing?
It's the dance moves. It's the lyrics in the song. It's about sex. Like they're like thrusting. They're like hip thrusting and like, you know.
Yeah.
It's grotesque. I wouldn't be doing it personally. That's my standard for myself. I would not be found in a video like that.
Got it.
But at the same time, I was trying to bring people back to earth. Like, most of these girls, right, they're in Louisiana, right? And I assumed at first they were sorority girls.
That's what I thought. I think that's what everybody thought.
But it did look like that. They're Republicans and they're Christians.
Right.
They're probably going to get married in a few years, the vast majority of them.
Right.
Okay? Like, this is not
public
enemy number one.
To be fair, I almost wrote a comment like, ooh, I can smell the birth control. You know what I mean? Like,
but they're not on it.
You don't think so? You don't think those girls
Okay,
were?
I really don't know if I have
that's the
right.
running joke with evangelicals. Like, when you see a bunch of evangelical, teenagers and late teens in a room together, the joke is, oh, I can smell the birth control.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. Like, a lot of women say that they had birth control pushed on them by their GPs, by their parents or teachers, like sex ed classes. But
I agree we're moving away from that now.
Yeah. Women are waking up slowly but surely. But I never experienced that. I never had a doctor who ever even brought it up or suggested it.
Right.
So I was totally unaware that it was even...
Maybe you didn't have any external problems that you think. Maybe you didn't have bad skin, or maybe you were chronically... Oh, really?
I had bad skin, and I did bring it up because I heard that it could help because I was like desperate.
And no one talked to you about it?
I brought it up to a doctor, and he said, well... you should try being vegan, and that might help your skin. Like, as an alternative to birth control.
Right.
He said, maybe you should try a plant-based diet. And I was like, wait, I've been vegan for 4 years now. Like, I still have bad skin.
Maybe better than, the alternative.
Better than birth control, but neither are good options.
Right.
I just never knew that it was so heavily pushed on young women because it was never suggested to me by anyone. And I didn't have sex ed classes, which is a great thing because I was in private religious schools. Yeah. So it's just ridiculous that what sex ed consists of for those kids is like, this is a condom. Yeah. It's like, this says nothing about like biology. No. Nothing about
I don't think anything
women's menstrual cycles or
I don't think anything's changed other than it just becoming more sexually explicit, right? And degenerative. So I think, the boomers will say, sex ed, they showed us a movie about birth and that was kind of it. My generation was, they did the kind of same thing. They showed, they put the condom on the banana and...
You did that?
Well, I went to a Catholic school, but I don't know. They may have spoken to us about that. I don't think we actually had a hands-on thing. But they showed us the film about,
even
the miracle of life.
Showing a birth video to a bunch of kids is really bizarre to me.
It's
that's
weird.
Something that they should have seen, like, growing up on a farm 200 years ago,
yeah.
right? That would have explained it for you.
Having you say that, I was thinking, and I posted this thought yesterday where I was sitting in the cubicle and, my wife sends me a picture of the kids and I'm just like, I don't think we were not meant to be away from our families. I think we were meant to be tolling on the land as a family and having everybody contribute, in a certain way. And that doesn't mean to say that we all have to be farmers, but, cobblers, blacksmiths, steel workers, swordsmiths, things like that. Yeah. But obviously, Industrial Revolution, which you did mention before, has turned everybody into these weird worker drones and just being in... People are like, wow, Michael has actually found corporate life now and he thinks this is a conspiracy, which I think it is, but it's just like,
you will eat the bugs, you will live in the pod.
Yeah, I grew up different though because my dad did work from home even back then, like in the mid 90s, and he's an architect and he started his own practice. But he was away most of the day, doing measurements and going to building departments and things like that. So he wasn't home all the time, but he was there. He was based there. You know what I mean? If his door was closed and the light was on, he was in there working. We knew not to disturb him, but he was home. So it's kind of weird that, I'm going away from my kids. My wife's like, Mike, it's been 3 weeks. I'm like, yeah, but it just doesn't feel right. There's something that just doesn't feel right about it. Like, I'm going to miss a lot.
Imagine that pull to be at home, but like 1,000 times stronger. And that's what women in the working world who want to start families are going through. It's awful.
My wife was working from home. We had a nanny at the time. This is when we were both working. This is when we were making really good money. And she made more than I did. She had moved up in her company a bunch of different times, raises, everything. And then we had a nanny in the house. She's working 10 feet away in the other room. And she's just like, this is weird. Why is there effectively a stranger in my house raising my daughter? I should be the person doing that. And my company doesn't care about me. They want me to contribute to the revenue of the company. They don't care. They paid for my maternity leave or whatever, but if they could have hired somebody else, they probably would have. Well, they can't fire her. But, the idea that a lot of corporate CEOs and corporate HR departments will pay for abortions is just kind of telling.
Not just paying for abortions, but they're also...
They'll pay for the travel.
They're, paying for the travel, but they have benefits that include freezing your eggs.
Oh, really?
Paying for IVF treatments.
You got to see The Pod Generation. You have to watch that movie.
I did.
Oh, you did watch it?
Yeah.
How did you like it?
The one with Emilia Clarke?
Yes. Did you like it?
It was okay. I was expecting a much more climactic ending.
Same.
Like, I was expecting her company to actually come after her, or the pod
Spoiler
company
alert.
to actually come after her. But then they just
and I said
I
don't know if the writers were poking fun at feminism unironically or ironically, because
but it was done well anyway, regardless of their intention.
Right,
it
was done well, and they were obviously poking fun at certain feminist tropes. You know what I mean? The being the girl boss and the thing about the husband not, being the one that actually is now. He said if I could get pregnant, I would get pregnant, but I can't, which is based in true. Like, the guy is saying, I can't get pregnant. Your whole, not your whole purpose, but, one of your biggest contributions to society and to the human race is that you are able to bear children. So you should do it. I don't want to have this pod kid. And then what happens? He's the one who ends up becoming closer to this pod kid because Emilia Clarke's character is more married to work, really. Mm-hmm. She's pregnant with work. She's not pregnant with a child.
But seeing a character who's torn between the two callings is like something that you wouldn't see.
No, it was nice. Remember
it's a really cool concept.
The scene in the gym.
The execution wasn't the best. But
I agree, but I thought it was good. It was a very weird way to approach a dystopian future. Mm-hmm. But that scene when they're in the gym and she touches the naturally pregnant woman's belly, you kind of see that sort of shift in her.
The dystopian future where the ability to be physically really pregnant is a privilege reserved for this rarefied class.
No, but not really. Remember, she couldn't afford to have the pod baby. So it's almost like the pores
the
are now.
pod company is like trying to sell this as like what you really would prefer.
Right, exactly. Right? Yes. Which is so weird. Mm-hmm. It was I enjoyed the movie. It was just something that we happened to see, just the thumbnail for, and I clicked on it and we watched it. I enjoyed that movie. I thought it was refreshing. I thought it was new. So that's good. I saw Cabrini.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I got a screener.
Well, what did you think?
Well, I'm not going to talk about it because I'm contractually obligated to make a review.
Yet.
No, it's not out yet, but I got a screener and I'm being paid to review it.
Cool.
Being totally transparent, but I liked it. Okay. I liked it. I thought it was good.
Well, you're an Access Media shill, so conversation over.
No, but it's almost nice.
When I first saw the trailer, it seemed
women.
Like they just repeated the Italian woman line at least 3 times, and I was like,
"Why would you let this
She's
Italian
an Italian woman." Like, is there anything else to the plot than the fact that she's an Italian woman?
It's funny because the overt racism. I don't know if you can call it racism, but just the I don't even want to call it bigotry, but just like the overt disgust of the WASP class in upper New York in the late 1800s towards Italians and Irish is just, it's so weird to see that personified on screen because, I mean, there are movies like that basically takes place at the same time Gangs of New York does, maybe 30 years or so-ish later. So we knew that, the native New Yorkers hated these Irish immigrants. They hated these Italian immigrants. So what the characters were saying, it wasn't totally out of left field. It wasn't exaggerated or made up. They probably dealt with this. But in the trailer, I agree. It was everything you let this brown Italian nun speak to you this way?
Yeah. People don't remember that there was racism against Irish and Italian
They hated them. Yeah. Well, I mean, EMJ talked about this. He talked about this within Catholicism too, because he's like, the Germans would have a church, the Irish would have a church, and the Italians would have a church, and they wouldn't speak to each other. But it was more of a cultural barrier because they didn't speak English, altogether. Well, the Irish did. But I enjoyed the movie. Mother Cabrini is the first American citizen who became a canonized saint, which is awesome. And,
I didn't know that either.
And Mother Teresa actually was inspired by her canonization to pursue her order and her I guess her ambitions at being a nun. Which is insane.
At least there's one movie about a nun that isn't a horror movie.
Yes, and that's part of my review.
Sexualizes nuns.
Right. That's part of my review. It's not also a movie with Doubt with Meryl Streep and Amy Adams where
my gosh, that is I haven't seen it, but I have heard that it is so bizarre.
Right, it's a movie. Obviously, when you involve the Catholic Church, you have to talk about abuse, right? So that's the reason why it gets buzz and acclaim.
Yeah.
It's not Sister Act where it's a bunch of nuns who have nothing to do with the actual religion or tenets of Catholicism.
I love Sister Act.
It's a fun movie. I'll grant you that. But this was the first time where a really positive and really influential story was made about a nun, an actual nun who started her own order and who was vastly influential in the charity aspect of the Catholic Church. She started so many hospitals, schools, everything. And she was just this brown little Dago Italian woman who that's what they call her. Did you let this little Dago talk to you like that? And it's just whatever.
Have you seen the Padre Pio movie?
We talked about this on our episode.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, on the pop culture. I
didn't end up watching it.
I advise everybody not to watch it because you'll be severely let down. And if we would have had an hour and a half of Shia as P.O., it would have probably been really good. But P.O.'s story took a backseat to...
It was secondary that they used him as the marketing material, basically.
Right.
But it's weird because now he has officially become Catholic.
Right.
He's thinking about becoming a deacon.
But he had to have read the script. And would he see
this movie and think that, this is a God-honoring,
he had to have read
movie?
The script.
Like, he knew what was in this.
Right. And that's what I'm saying.
So what's that about?
So I'm sure they just didn't give him sides on his scenes, right? Like, they had to have given him the whole script. And I'm surprised that, this transformation of Shia happened after the movie. So he probably went in there saying, I'm just playing this part. I'm going to do as much research. Well, it was during and
after, right? Because he started his journey into Catholicism to do basically method acting.
But he spoke, exactly.
Yeah.
But he spoke to Bishop Barron after the movie was done and finished. And I'm just saying, like, I wonder, like, how were things changed during filming? Did he know that things were going to end up like this and just his role was going to be totally secondary to the plot, where the plot was more of, the birth of Italian fascism and, and Marxism in Italy at the time? And I think had he known that, he may not have done the movie. But I think he did a great job as P.O. and I'm kind of bummed that
he can't exactly talk shit about the movie now. Now that it's out. So I understand it's probably a difficult position to be in.
Yeah, poor Shia. I wanted him for the lead of my movie for a very long time, and I think that he's got 3 or 4 movies that he's doing now in pre-production that he wouldn't have time to do it. So
he also has a trial coming up.
For the FK Twigs stuff?
Yeah. Either later this year or early next year.
He did a podcast with a boxer, an English boxer, who is training him for this next movie that he's doing, where he's not even playing a boxer, he's playing a brother to a boxer, but he wants to, that method acting, he wants to get into the mind of a boxer. But he talked about, him being on the verge of suicide because of all that stuff coming out, where he literally had the gun on the table and a text from a friend saved him. Because he said, the friend was like, just serendipitously, hey man, how you doing? And Shia was saying, it's close to the end. I'm going to do it. It's, this is probably the last time you're going to talk to me. And the friend just said, okay, well, tell me about it tomorrow. And Shia was saying, yeah, that bought me a day. And then we met up the next day and then we talked about it. And then I think he started doing the, AA and that type of therapy.
Yeah.
I like Shia a lot. I think he's crazy. I think
a lot of creatives are.
Yeah.
So.
I think he's crazy. I think the way he approaches a lot of his roles, he gets really... That's unfair. It's uncharitable. I don't want to say he's crazy. I think he's very passionate and he throws himself into it fully for each role that he does, where he wants to appear genuine, but he also wants to appear serious in front of his... not associates, but in front of the comrades or in front of the people that he's making this film with. Like, he doesn't want to look like an amateur at all. But
what about Kanye?
I spoke to a friend, I'm not going to say who has very deep inside knowledge of what's happening with him, and I think Kanye is crazy.
You are willing to say that he's crazy.
I think he's crazy.
Not Shia LaBeouf, you think?
I think Kanye West is crazy, and I feel bad for him. I really feel bad for him. I hope he gets some help. I think he's crazy.
I listened to the recent album Vultures and was just deeply disappointed.
Yeah. I put it on, I tried to listen to it, and I just didn't get into it.
It's also just musically, it's really beautiful. Subpar compared to his past music. Like, just on the quality of the music, the production, like, it's just subpar.
I can't speak to that too much.
The lyrics, though, they're disgusting.
Well,
and blasphemous.
Yes, my insider has clearly affirmed that, God has left, his mindset. And that's sad because...
And it's been so little time. Like, literally, it was just last summer.
I don't want to put the grifter label on it. You know what I mean?
It hasn't even been a year since he invited Bryson Gray out to
Japan
help him
or whatever that
with
was,
Vultures in Tokyo. Like, that was not that long ago.
No.
How is it possible for someone to switch up that fast?
Well, being diagnosed bipolar probably attributes a little bit to that.
But someone who's... someone with a mental disorder like that, like, I mean, he thinks he was misdiagnosed, whatever. I don't know the truth. But
I'm not a psychiatrist.
Someone with a mental disorder like that or any mental illness, it doesn't mean that they're incapable of authentic religious expression. Maybe the religious fervor can kind of hijack them emotionally.
And that fades away. We all know that fades away. That zealousness as far as entering a new religion or refining yourself into
that happens to anyone.
Right.
But you've opened the door to the graces.
Yeah. I think...
And it's not closed, you know?
I'll tell you after this episode... No, I actually don't want to tell you anything after this episode because this person might be listening and she's like, I told you not to tell anybody, so I probably won't say anything.
Okay.
But, I mean, you can just, use your own conjecture to kind of draw conclusions that, maybe he's not surrounded by the best people. Maybe
but
that
he's
plays
also
part
not
of
the
it.
best person.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
It's not just his friends, you know.
Right.
I'm not going to absolve him of all of his decisions. No. He's a grown-ass man.
Yes. I think the way he's parading his wife around is atrocious.
It's not his wife.
That's his wife. Aren't they married?
That's not a valid marriage.
Oh, okay. I see. You're being technical.
I mean, let's be real.
Here.
Like,
yeah.
As two Catholics, like,
yes,
that's not a valid marriage,
no.
right?
Well, he wasn't married in the Catholic Church.
He wasn't
anyway,
married.
So.
He wasn't. I mean, was it a valid marriage when he was married to Kim legally? Who knows? Because she was married before that.
Right. This is why the
institution...
institution...
has this guy ever really been married in the eyes of God?
Right, and that's why the institution of marriage is so... And, like, Pearl talked about this a little bit, which I kind of give her credit for. She's like, why does the state have to get involved in marriage? And I do kind of agree with that. I said, yeah, well, I think the marriage, quote-unquote, contract is more valid in the church and in the eyes of God because I think it's a literal joining of blood. You know what I mean? Where I think... The state takes it over as a little bit of control.
Okay, but it's complicated because as Catholics, we don't believe in a separation of church and state as such, you know?
Well, it's the problem with being American Catholics, right?
Yeah.
Well, there is no wording in any of the founding documents about the separation of church and state other than in a letter that Thomas Jefferson wrote to some Baptists. But, yeah. I agree.
I do feel like the state should be involved in marriage.
But see, it's the state, and then it's the federal government of the United States, which I don't necessarily...
It depends on the regime we have.
Right, exactly. So if we're talking about the state, in my world, the Catholic Church would also be the state.
Right, exactly.
So if we get married and the state has a say or it is involved in our marriages, then I agree with that because it's the church, essentially. But now when you're talking about the American federal government and each of these 50 individual states and their constitutions and all their laws regarding marriage, religion sadly has nothing to do with it. Mm-hmm. Unless you are a Catholic and you get married in a Catholic church. I don't know how many Catholics who seek divorce seek annulment. I wonder what the numbers are in that because in order...
Probably a very
little,
small
right? Very little.
Because they were probably married without proper counseling about what it means.
Right. And I think in order to get married in that same church, remarried, you would probably have to go through an annulment, right? But if you're just going to go to a different church and get married in a different church, then you probably don't seek that out.
Right.
And it's a headache because it's actually a process. They interview your friends. They interview your family. People are brought in to attest on if the annulment is legitimate or not. I don't necessarily know the process of it.
I don't either.
But it's intense.
I have been told that my parents are divorced. I have been told by a priest that, based on what I told him, that the marriage was null. Mm-hmm. But I don't think they have an official decree of nullity.
Oh.
I don't know how it all works.
Maybe it's more of like a spiritual annulment or something like that.
It's extremely complicated and extremely fraught, just like divorce is.
Yeah. I wish divorce wasn't a thing, and a lot of the red pill guys talk about no fault divorce being a huge problem. And looking into that, I just have a surface level view over it, where a divorce can be granted based on no fault from either person, which kind of seems kind of crazy. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But yeah, I think if a marriage ends in a divorce, I think there should probably be a pretty good reason. That's when an annulment seeks out. Like, let's see what happened in this marriage that made it invalid. Whether it was infidelity or physical abuse, which I don't even think the church encourages divorce in those cases anyway.
But it's permitted.
Right, but it's permitted. Yeah.
Yeah, and I tried to make this so clear when this exact subject came up on whatever. Mm-hmm. I think the most recent time that I was on, or it was the one that had Destiny on the panel. Oh, I tried to make that clear that was the stance of the church, and I wasn't the only Catholic on the panel.
Yeah.
And I did say that because, I mean, it was like 10 people all like yelling at each other. So I tried to get my word in, whatever. And then later on, people acted like I never said that. And they were acting like I think that abuse victims shouldn't be able to get out of that marriage.
I remember that.
When I explicitly said the opposite.
Yes, that was.
And then someone
Chase was on
clip.
that. Chase was on that, and someone else was on that, where they were like, "Well, you don't think if a guy's beating up on his wife that marriage should end in a divorce?"
And then this idiot next to me, what does he call himself? It was like MLD.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like screaming, "You should endure, endure," and like we're like, bro, stop! Like
you're embarrassing yourself.
Stop being cringe. And then we were all put into the same category that we agreed with him.
Right.
And Destiny defamed me so blatantly on the timeline, saying you 1000% hate abuse victims.
Yeah.
And then the second that someone goes out of their way to post the clip where I said it is permissible to seek a divorce in cases of infidelity and abuse, according to Catholics, the Catholic Church, then it's crickets.
Yeah.
Then we're not going to talk about it anymore.
No, he's an engagement farmer is what he is. That's what those streamers do, right? They need it in order to survive. So they have to constantly create engagement. That's where like, okay, I have a normal job. I don't necessarily need this endless stream of engagement. I post something. If no one cares, great. If people care, fine. Awesome. I'm not going to quit my job because I got 100,000 views on a tweet now. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's another weird thing about this generation and the alphas and the Zs, how they all want to be streamers. They all want to be YouTubers. I'm worried about the state of the world. Like, will there be doctors? I probably won't be around, but will there be doctors?
Gen Z like has a lot of problems, obviously. Like everyone knows that.
But you don't think we're doomed in that way?
But no, just think about how bad it's going to be for Gen Alpha.
Yeah.
Like I am actually worried about them being able to function. Like, are they going to be intellectually impaired for life because they are being raised with an iPad as their primary attachment figure? Yeah. Like, I just don't see an off-ramp after that. And you don't, like, no one deserves to be raised by a screen.
No.
But what do you do to, like, rehabilitate someone after that? That is something that could intellectually impair you for life and emotionally impair you
I'm more worried that classical music disappears.
Oh, yeah. What happened to, like, people playing classical music when they're pregnant, like, around their belly?
I do that. I did that for my wife. But just saying, like, you know, will the opera exist? Will museums with...
Yeah, we were talking about this on PCC. Yeah, remember? Like, will high culture disappear?
Well, I was talking about horse racing.
And and horse racing.
I brought that up, and you were like, well, maybe not so much horse racing, but orchestral music. Yeah, you know, how many kids are going to be raised to play the violin and the piano? I think now it might be easier to get them involved because of these screens where you can lay an iPad on the piano and it can now teach the kid and the technology with these things that come out.
You're going to put the Apple Vision Pro on your baby and teach
I
your baby
I
to
saw
play
a
the
video
piano.
of a guy with the Apple Vision Pro on learning to play piano because there's if you look at YouTube videos about you can look at, you know, piano covers and they'll show the keys that are being pressed. Like, I like those, but they did that in the Apple Vision Pro. I was like, that's kind of a cool learning tool.
Okay, it's cool in theory, but let's be realistic about what is this device going to be used for.
Have you seen the movie Never Let Me Go?
No, I don't
Andrew
think so.
Garfield, who's that? Carey Mulligan, and who's the girl that can never keep her mouth closed all the way? Keira Knightley.
She can't keep her mouth closed.
No, she's always like this.
It's true.
It's
true.
Never Let Me Go is a fascinating movie. It was no, early. My wife went down for a nap. Okay, it was who's that Japanese British author? Written a lot of contemporary novels, but it was based on this novel, and the guy who wrote the movie is friends with him and got the rights to the movie before the book was released, and it's the same guy that wrote Annihilation, not Devs, Devs, and then what's that movie with the robot and Domhnall Gleeson and the guy from Dune.
Not sure. Annihilation is cool.
The AI movie before Annihilation with the robot.
What, her?
Anyway, no, not her. The one where this one coder wins a prize to meet the CEO of the company, so he goes to the house, and the guy's like, hey, I created this AI robot, and it looks like a real woman, but it's a robot, and she ends up, you know...
I don't know.
Ex Machina.
Oh,
so it's the same writer of that movie, but it's this really interesting movie where it's a group of children who are raised in, like, 1970s England, but it's a completely different world, and they are raised only to be farmed for their body parts for their clones. So they were cloned at birth specifically to be body parts if anything happens to their clones. And it's a heartbreaking movie. It's really, really interesting. And, it gets to our humanity, and it's ultimately a pro-life movie. Not anti-abortion, but it definitely is a pro-life movie.
There are a lot of crypto pro-life
there really
movies, actually.
I think the Pod Generation may have been one.
Yes. And Twilight, that's controversial. But
I know.
I believe it was.
I think we talked about that too.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, let's wind this down. We talked for nearly 2 hours. We made up for this from last time.
Okay.
And I'm only saying wind it down because we're having company over later, and I have to make 4 steaks. And I want to mentally prepare for that because I don't like getting steak wrong. It's the one thing I hate. Thanks, Mary.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. This was good. And I'm going to save this and export it as soon as we're done so that it doesn't get lost, okay? So say bye, Mary.
We need to redeem it.
You can watch Mary on Pop Culture is a Crisis on Timcast.
Pop Culture Crisis.
Pop Culture Crisis, sorry. Is pop culture is a crisis anything?
No.
Not for any of your names?
But it is.
Okay, it is a crisis. Yeah, Pop Culture Crisis. It's on Timcast. Find her on Twitter, Instagram, all this other stuff. Don't DM her because she won't look at it. Bye now.